Could I start, please, with one more round of applause for all of the speakers? Here he is. He times it for the round of applause. I love it. I love it. Awesome, awesome. I'm going to start very briefly by following on from what JB said at the start, actually. He mentioned very politely that they're hiring. Very politely. I love it. I love it. It's a community. We're not selling anything. But I'm definitely going to go one step further and just say that these amazing people, this amazing company have been fantastic partners for us this year. Everything we do, as you well know, is always for free. It's always about good content, sharing knowledge, real world personality, and we've really seen it today. You can clearly tell they employ amazing people. So if you are on the market for a job, I would recommend speaking to JB. So that said, that's from the heart, man, as well. That's from the heart. We're on to the panel. I do love a panel. I've been saying for about 2 weeks now, the community's super engaged. Don't worry about it. It's going to be loads of questions. I've prepared some questions. I'm hoping I need very little of them. So I'm looking at you. You're getting a question out of you. I've also noted there's 2 people, I think, with Christmas jumpers. If you've got a Christmas jumper, I'm looking at you, Till. There was one more. Guaranteed questions from the Christmas jumpers. But I guess just quickly to set the scene. So in terms of the panel, broadly speaking, all of the panelists can speak to scale, real world implementation, real business problems, broad applications across different industries. They can all talk about future trends. They can all talk about responsibilities, ethics, team structure, how to get the best out of data teams, etc., etc. So there's a very broad scope. If you have a question, we would love to hear it. In terms of that as well, I will follow on from each of the topics with a couple of specific questions for each of the panelists. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions to get us going of each of the panelists, and then we're going to be looking to you. So don't stand on ceremony. It's a community. We're here to have fun. Ask a question. I did ask Tom for a question, but I've changed my mind, actually. I will come to you, Tom. I will come to you. Perfect. In terms of the questions, if someone asks you a question, if I could just ask you, whoever's going to answer it, if you could just repeat the question back, that'd be really useful. And the people in the audience, we're going to ask you to shout. So first and foremost, I'm going to come to our first 2 speakers. Sunny, fantastic. First time speaking? Sunny killed it, didn't she? Can we have one more round of applause for Sunny? Well done, Sunny. Rory's an old hand. He doesn't need a round of applause. He's done it before. So obviously, you were both speaking to the challenges of working between engineering and data science. I think that will resonate with absolutely everybody in the room. I think the thing working in data now at the moment, you need a multitude of skills. It's a team sport. I think everyone realises that. So I think the first question I'm going to have for both of you is, how do you balance the often differing priorities and methodologies between engineering and data science in a project? And I know you talked briefly about it in your lightning talk, but if you could just expand on that, both of you, that would be great.
Yeah, I can start. It might be a bit easier for me because I'm working on a product team, so we naturally work on the same goals already, and we're quite aligned in what we want to achieve. But we've had a few challenges into prioritizing work. A data scientist naturally wants to do fancy stuff, wants to do deep learning or machine learning even, but often in actual production, these things are difficult to work because engineers need to spend a lot of time integrating and also creating an environment for that. So for me as a data scientist, it was also key to have understanding that I need to get aligned with what they can build and not just focus on what I want to do. And naturally working on the same product helped with that because we had a goal there and it was easy to get that going.
So I think Sunny summed it up. We always have more work than we have time to do, right? There's always going to be work to fill the gaps. So you're always making choices between, how much time something's going to take to build and how much impact it's going to have, whether that's a piece of research, a piece of implementation, or even cleaning up your code and making your code base more stable. There's always trade-offs, and it's always a discussion. There's no simple answers, but it comes down to discussion.
I'm going to follow up with one more for you, Rory.
Oh,
you came from big banking, man. You've come in. How have you found that?
It's great fun. So big banking, we have big systems, we do real-time systems, you do all that kind of stuff. That's a lot of fun. That's where I started, right? I enjoy those kind of challenges of building big data. Coming to here, you don't need to produce exactly the same number every time. It's great. I don't get called at 3 in the morning, which is also awesome because we have a follow the sun support model. So that's great. But the challenges actually are even big. At some points we deal with internet scale here, and some of the scales we deal with here are orders of magnitude bigger than what you deal with in a bank. It's fascinating.
Amazing, amazing. I'm expecting some questions on scale. I've got a couple, so we'll definitely come back to that. I do like as well that Sonny was basically, in football terms, calling data scientists Cristiano Ronaldo, the show ponies. They're out there, and then the engineers are doing all the grunt work behind. The midfield, central, they're making it happen. So, sorry, I don't know where I was going with that. I'm going to take one more question for the pair of you. And in terms of this collaboration, we've all got the picture. I think we're all doing it to some extent in our day to day. The next question I had for you was: does this level of collaboration change depending on the stage of a project? At super early stages, are data scientists still throwing out a notebook, proof of concept, stuff like that? At what point do the engineers get involved? Does it change through a project as you're building?
It absolutely does, because at the start of a project, somebody comes up with an idea and says, we think we should do this prediction, or we think we could attack this market. Well, that's pure data science. Like, is there a market there? Is there value in that piece of data? Can you before you go and build 6 months building a system to do something, the first step is it worth doing, right? And that's just data analysis. So a notebook's perfect. I know we slag off notebooks from a production point of view, but the answer is they work for quick, iterative experimentation. Do you want to add anything, Sonny?
I think you summed it up perfectly.
Apparently I summed it up perfectly. There you go.
I love that. Thank you both very much. I'm going to come to Gianluca now. I was actually reminiscing, So the first time I met Gianluca was 2017. Joined us on a panel again, was fantastic on that. Tom, who I'm coming to for a question, was also on the same panel, and by chance it's just all looped back together, so that's absolutely fantastic. I feel like between Oktoberfest, between now, I've learned a little bit about ads, and I wasn't expecting to, and it's actually a world of complication, first and foremost, and a changing world as well. So my question to you, Gianluca, is jumping around a little bit. Obviously, it's a different topic, but there's been a transition from second price to first price auction models. First of all, if you could just very briefly explain that transition, and then talk a bit, if you don't mind, about how that's impacted, bidding strategies, if possible.
Right. Okay. So I guess what I showed you is what currently happens, which is you have auctions and auctions of auctions. And it's just a lot easier for everybody if you just take the maximum price, because the maximum of a maximum is still the maximum. Before that, when this all started, we had second price auctions, which are, I guess, better in a way, even in a mathematical sense, because if you're bidding and you know that you will always pay just 1 cent more, say, than the second highest price, you're incentivized to reveal how much something is worth to you, because you know you will never overpay. Now, the argument at the time from the supply side, and it's not for me to suggest they're evil, but the argument was, well, if you're running an auction of second price auctions, it's difficult to determine what the second price is across all the auctions. Which is partly true, but you could be sending the whole price list, and figure it out anyway. But for better or worse, this is what happened. This is a transition that happened with header bidding and this sort of bidding in parallel. The main change has been the need on our side, on the demand side, to cap how much more advertisers would spend or publisher would gain from this, which is the predictive clearing model that I presented at Oktoberfest. I guess it's not an entirely solved problem. Of course, we can always make it better and try and squeeze more efficiency out, but this has definitely been the largest change.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Gianluca. I suspect there's going to be a number of questions for Gianluca from the audience, so I will jump on to Ed and John now. But I guess just a quick show of hands in terms of advertising. How many of you work within organisations that are spending? I'm assuming a big percentage of you are spending on ad spend at the moment. Okay. Less than I was expecting, actually, but we're going to be coming back, I'm absolutely sure. Just bringing Ed and John into it. Loved your approach, Ed. The fact just before both parts of your presentation you weren't in the room. I've got a lot of time for it. I might start taking that approach.
Just in time compilation, you see.
Just in time. Let's not mess about. So I guess following on to both of your presentation. Again, loved your approach, loved your style. Absolutely, that real world get shit done in the nice way possible. It's what we're all about. I guess in terms of that. You've talked about coming from trillions of points into some key metrics. You're obviously looking for accuracy, but you're looking for speed, you're looking for simplicity. How do you approach that balance? I suppose at times the business would like you to go into the 99.9 percentile, but actually the 90th works. How do you deal with all that?
It's a good question. There's a few ways. So, for one thing, we are looking towards not having to do that trade-off at all. So, and contrary to the talk slightly, we have been looking at the potential of investing in some new hardware that might take a little bit longer and some new approaches, but working out maybe we have one tool that does that kind of quick iterative approach that gives the kind of indication. And then when they're kind of happy with how they're doing and they really want to know, hey, okay, maybe not to the penny, we're never going to get there, or cent, sorry. Can I do something that's going to run, it's going to take 5 minutes, an hour, 3 days, probably not 3 days, I hope not 3 days. But can I have something that runs a little bit longer, that's a little bit more accurate? So yeah, basically, in order to do that trade-off, ideally we're looking to do neither, but at the moment, we're still keeping within that time limit.
Amazing, thank you very much. Anything to add from yourself, John?
I think
He's nailed it. That's what you want from a co-pilot. We love it. It's like Maverick and Goose. Perfect. I'll quickly come to you, Rory, actually, on the same point. Where you talk about that balance, you're talking about scale, you're obviously building pipelines, you're reproducing, et cetera, et cetera. How do you manage that balance?
I'm not sure how much more you can actually add to it, right? It's always, everything we do is a trade-off. It's as simple as that. You're always trading off one thing at the trade. Why didn't I think of that? That would have been such a good opener.
I know.
It's too late now. But every decision we make here, between speed and quality, is a trade-off. And you can't make those decisions on your own. It's like, what is the business goal? This is why I say you should understand a bit of the business space you're working in, because that really defines which trade-offs you can make.
Perfect. Thank you very much. In terms of that, I'm going to go with a couple more questions, but just a quick judge the room. Does anyone feel like they're ready with a question? Okay, so I'm going to do 2 more, and then we're coming. Okay, perfect. I guess just following on from my last point, in that case, you're speaking about a complex topic. You're all data people, you're all technical people, you're making these trade-offs, as you're saying, between scale, how deep do we need to go, what do we actually need to get for the business, etc. But I guess somewhere in this process and within the trade desk, you're dealing with non-technical people. How do you approach translating these complex topics to commercial people, to product people, business people, etc., etc.? Rory is panicking. Absolute rabbit in the headlights. I'm going to take something from you, and then we'll maybe come to John as well.
It's one of the key skills that you need to learn in your career is communication. You're always going to be communicating with people that know different sets of information to you, experts in different areas. So how do you couch the trade-off between speed and performance and predictive performance to a business person? How do you say, well, it's 99th percentile, at 10 seconds, but it's 95th percentile at 1 second, right? Well, how do you couch that? What language will the business person understand to make that, to be able to make that decision from a business point of view? And that
makes perfect sense. I'd love John to add to that, and then I've done my job. I've got everyone involved. Come on, John.
Yeah, I think it is very difficult. Like, often me and Ed could be like in a meeting and very in the weeds, and then you have to come out and like speak to someone who you can easily forget that not everyone is right in the problem as deep as you are. So it can be difficult to remember to start from scratch when you're explaining it to someone new and stuff like that. Yeah.
I guess, not trying to push back, but I'm going to push back a little bit. Have you ever had situations where you guys have been in the weeds, you've gone into it, you've come up with, is the best solution, you've come out the meeting, you're talking to non-technical people and they've gone, no, I need something different, as is bound to happen. How has there ever been, I assume there has been elements of conflict, whether here or in the past, how do you approach that to get someone round to your way of thinking?
I feel like, yeah, at the trade desk generally, like we're given pretty much our own, we're able to make our own decisions quite a lot, and I've never really had that sort of conflict with the product side or anything like that. We're pretty much given the opportunity to make those decisions ourselves. Yeah,
it's good to hear. If not, you just send Ed. I'm assuming. I've made an assumption.
I'll sort them out. Yeah,
he'll sort them out. I'm going to go with one more from me, and then it was Alex, wasn't it? Yeah, I'll come to you next. So, obviously, what we've talked about today has been, specific in a sense to the ad tech space, but equally, there's a lot of challenges that you've talked about that are transferable to different industries. And I'm assuming we've got people from different industries here today. So, from your experience, what perhaps might be some of the key learnings that you've been working on that could apply elsewhere? And I'll maybe shoot down to the far end with Gianluca and come back from there, if that's all right.
I guess it's one of the interesting things, right, of statistics and data analysis and data science. You just pick up random methods. I started this journey in medical research, and in fact, a lot of the times when I think about A/B tests, I think in medical terms. That make absolutely no sense to anybody else, but it's fine. You can then translate them back. So I guess there are in stats in general a few techniques that you end up using over and over again, and it's maybe seeing the connections and seeing that something is called slightly differently in a different field. It's again what Rory was saying in communication. Sometimes even within the same discipline, there isn't much communication, or people tend to label things differently. So I would say that the general principles of stats and being able to apply them to different problems also helps you then with the scale, because suddenly you realize why things break at scale if you sort of know deep down how they work.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Anything else to add, Sunny, or coming back this way?
I guess for me, the one that is most important is I now know how to deal with impossible problems. It's like they would just come to me and they would be like, "Do some magic," and I think that applies to every field. You can just learn how to deal with impossible.
Sunny is Ronaldo. I've confirmed it. Perfect. It's so interesting hearing you talk about that, Gianluca, and I think it's a good reminder for everyone. I think perhaps everyone knows it to some extent, and I was chatting with Callum just before we joined, come from an ecology background, working in quant at Morgan Stanley, but underneath it all there is transferable, as much as it sounds like will there be, but the stats underneath it are transferable, which is nice to hear. So I am going to throw things out to the audience. We're going to ask you to shout. And we're going to try our best to repeat the questions back in case everyone can't hear them, and then we'll go from there. So first and foremost, is your question for one panellist in particular, or?
Quite likely.
Okay, I can hear you very well. Who would be the panellist?
Hi, I'm Zaremba. My question is mostly to Gianluca, I believe. I was very curious about what you were mentioning, the change from first prize auction to second prize auction. And I'm very curious because from mechanism design point of view, second prize auction are incentive compatible and first prize auctions are not. So I'm curious if incentive compatibility is no longer seen as important, or is it that there are some other, or is it that it is achieved in some other way? Or are there other priorities that are more important than that?
Thank you.
Well, I guess the way the change happened is interesting, maybe in understanding why. As I said, the motivation was maybe saying, well, we want to run this auction of auctions, and we need to find a way to do this. And of course, there are many solutions. First price auctions are one of them. As you say, they don't incentivize us or the advertisers that we represent to show their true colors in a sense and convey what they believe the ad space is worth. Now, there's a company that you might have heard of. It starts with G, and the problem is when you implement a change at that scale, and it makes them a lot more money because clearly you're in the business, you're on the other side from the trade desk, and the switch causes you to, as the publisher and the SSP, to gain a lot more margin. It's very difficult for other players to not do the same because you create the pressure in the ecosystem. So I think it was less about, it was more of a, we want to gain some quick margin, and then the moment you flip the switch for, I don't know, a third of the market, everybody else follows. And this is what happens. And then you end up, it's a bit of a cat and mouse game where on our side, and similarly, we're not the only DSP, of course, you end up with the same problem of saying, well, okay, now you're making too much money. We need to address that problem. And you kind of then end up developing models to stop that or to revert as much as possible to a second price world using what we call predictive clearing. There's different names, but same principle.
Amazing. Thank you for the question, and thank you very much, Gianluca. Who is next, please? The chap with the glasses, please. Again, if I could ask you to shout.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. To every one of you, I hope, if you can give us some colors around how different or similar your business is to finance, in particular systematic trading. I guess mostly in terms of models and data, like scale of data.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'll repeat that one back. So the question was, how different is ad tech to systematic trading and finance industries and stuff like that? So who would be best placed to answer that one? Rory. Turns out he's come from the right place.
Real-time electronic trading and real-time electronic bidding is sort of similar, right? You're trying to predict the market. You're trying to make trades. Often though, the trick is to be faster than the other person. We have a time limit, but we don't have a first past the post win. So in some forms of sort of high frequency trading, you want to place your server as close to the exchange as you physically can because the speed of light matters, where we have a bidding window. So yeah, you're trying to do things, you're trying to build systems that run in very small time windows at very high rates, using models, using all the same things, but the game is different. Those guys, sometimes they go down to silicon, they do crazy stuff to get to full high frequency trading. We don't have to do that, but counterwise, reducing the amount of time or effort we do to decide on whether to bid or not actually saves us a lot of money. So if we can throw away a bid and say we're not interested in this in 1 millisecond instead of 20 milliseconds, we've saved 20 milliseconds of compute. We could do 20 times as much, bidding on the same hardware. So it does matter.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That was Michael Lewis, Flash Crash. Have you read that book? Yeah, that was mad when they were moving the data center next door just to try and get half.
Yeah,
oh my days.
because if you get the bid before the other person gets the bid and you can respond in the same time, you've won, wow. Right? Because it is a
madness.
It's a race.
I guess I'm going to maybe add to that one, which is I guess there is also maybe an analogous space as well in terms of the actual bids themselves. So in that you basically, in theory, back in the day when you were placing ads, you go down to the local news agents, you'd agree a price and they go post them around, right? But the kind of real-time space, but also the fact that you're now just got a bunch of competing algorithms basically what you're now trading on is the, let's say, marginal difference between each of your models. So if your model has positive noise at one particular point, you're overpaying probably. If it has negative noise, well, you might not win when you maybe could have done. So anytime as we kind of progress into that more algorithmic space, we end up in a situation, okay, maybe we're not going to see, you know, just a bunch of graphs where you have people placing bids at, you know, a tiny bit above the spread and stuff like that. But actually, over a long term, that's what it ends up as, is you are trying to bid to the correct price and you almost create that spread.
Thank you both very much. I've got a very rogue question, and I will come to you, sir. My wife runs a yoga studio. We occasionally spend on Google Ads. We've got no chance, have we? Well, I'm burning money, aren't I? I've probably got 2 new customers and it's cost me £89 or something like that. Well, I'm doing it wrong. Do you do any sort of
counter-wise, how
trades?
much is one new customer worth to a yoga studio?
Not £89. I've overpaid. I've overpaid. Right,
I'm working with the wrong company.
I am. Sorry, sir. I'm going to come to the chat with the lovely hair. If you could shout as loud as possible, please.
Thanks very much for a great series of talks. I have 2 questions, but if I'll take one. Maybe to Gianluca. I was wondering about different strategies in first price bidding, where the bid value, shading, etc. I was wondering how you thought about elasticity in first price auctions, and is there any real-time elasticity that you try to exploit?
Gianluca, could I get you to repeat that back for the power of YouTube?
Yes. I guess the question was about the elasticity in first price auctions, right? I don't think that we really exploit that, to be honest. We do have, as you can imagine, the predictive clearing model tries to model that curve, right? What would happen at different price points. It's a relatively simple model in terms of the shape of the response curve currently, but it is a good point. The other thing that I didn't mention, but probably should be at the back of our minds, is the fact that we don't really model, or as far as I'm aware, most bid shading models don't really model the competition. So often you end up, and we don't really have data on this because we're not on the selling side, but you might end up being the only bidder in an auction, in which case arguably you could, if there is a floor price, you could bid there, or you could bid 1 cent and win, right? And at that point, any amount of money is wasted, in a sense. There's no second price. But yeah, we don't really currently incorporate any of that.
Thank you, Gianluca. There was a question here. Yes, please.
Hi there. This isn't a question for any specific person, but I was just wondering for an advice. Wondering what would you recommend on how to break into data science as a field? Because I'm trying to get in.
Perfect. Very good question. Thank you very much. So the question was, what would you recommend in breaking into data science? And we'll come to Ed.
So I did break into data science. Woo!
Hurrah! Ronaldo!
And I've been doing it for about 7 years. So I mean, I could talk maybe a bit about my path, but so briefly, so I was working at Tesco. I spent a couple of years as an analyst, kind of like a data monkey, if you will. It was my job. No, not officially, but yeah. Basically, I found a bunch of guys doing data science. They all wore shorts. I thought they were awesome. And then I just nagged the absolute crap out of them. I just went to them, I started talking to them. I didn't stop talking to them until eventually they just had to give me a job. But probably the motivation behind that is probably what's more interesting to me, or possibly to you, which is if you're passionate about it, which I was, I took a demotion to go be a data scientist because it's just what I wanted to do. And obviously it worked out, you know. But I think for me, it's always been just that passion. I absolutely love my job. And so kind of by pushing myself and, you know, taking that step, forcing myself down into a team and working hard, yeah, you work your way up and you'll do well. So it's all about finding that first foothold. And if it's at your current company, maybe they do have roles there, maybe they don't have roles there, maybe you need another company. But If it's getting into the field, find yourself a junior role. I was an associate data scientist, the only one. They created the role for me. But yeah, so if you have the passion for it, find your way there, and the rest kind of sorts itself out.
I've seen a hand from Sonny, so I'm going to add on one more thing from what Ed said, which I love that answer, like push,
Forgot to repeat the
passion.
question,
We might
didn't
have to come back to it. No, we're good. I repeated it for you, mate.
Thank
You're
you.
okay. So I'm going to add one more step to it as well, because I know we have got a couple of students with us as well. So perhaps if you're in education and you're looking to get that first job and stuff like that, but I'll hand over to you, Sonny.
Yeah, I joined through our wonderful internship program, and this was my first experience as a data scientist. I just graduated. Actually, I was about to do my master's, and the internship program was amazing. So if you're looking for a career change, I would highly recommend looking for internships. It's a great way to try out if something fits you, if you like a company. It's a great way to change career paths as well, and I couldn't recommend our internship program more.
Just quickly to follow on from that, Sonny, could you tell us a bit more about the internship? How long was it? Was it paid? How did you find it in the first place?
Oh gosh, I just didn't want to leave, you know. Initially, it was a summer internship. It was 3 months, and then I had to go back and do my master's, but I wanted to stay. So they offered me to stay part-time, and I was studying and working at the same time. My university allowed me to do over 5 hours per week. Can you imagine? It was great though. The internship was pretty interesting. I was actually working on real world problems. It wasn't just something they came up with or something they didn't want to do. It was actually a really interesting project that then the company used, and it was a great experience. I learned a lot. I was on the identity team as well. It was a very different field to what I know now.
I have one more question. Again, because I'm hoping it's relevant, but how did you find the internship in the first place? Was it from the university? Were you proactive? Did you outreach to the trade desk? Did they advertise? How did you get that foot in the door?
I was doing maths, and I was looking for finance positions and trading internships. So I found the trade desk and thought they were a trading company. After my first meeting with a recruiter, I realized they were doing ad tech, and the role was actually a data science role. And I thought I would never fit for that role, but they interviewed me and we liked each other quite a lot, so I got lucky.
The universe is a wonderful thing sometimes, isn't it? I love that. Sunny like the weather, good things happen. Amazing, amazing. Cool. I will come to you first, sir. You were slightly quicker. I'll come to you after.
Thank you, guys. This is for anyone who's not it's not for anyone in particular. Has there ever been a time when, like, a model or the number of data points or anything has caused like production to crash, or do you have like fail safes for it? And if it has, how has it affected the customers?
Has production ever crashed? How did it affect the customers?
I have crashed it a few times,
Oh,
but
Sunny?
I will let someone else.
Sunny didn't know what she was doing, but she's crashed it. I'm joking, of course.
One of the challenges at the trade desk is because of the scale of data, it's actually hard to do independent testing. Yeah. So one of the things we do is we do live testing. So we will upgrade one server out of our bidding farm and see how that model performs. Because if it's wrong, it's 1/1000th of I can't remember how many bidding servers we've got. It's a scary number, but it's a tiny percentage, right? And it might not be as successful, or it might be more successful. So we monitor that server, and if that's successful, we then scale up that test to a number of bidding servers, right? So, yes, you want to test outside of production, but the answer is for what we do, especially when you're doing things like prediction and modeling, the only real time you're going to know it works is when you roll it out live. So we have a pattern of feature switches in production, and we have a pattern of doing sort of canary testing, sort of scale canary testing.
Perfect, thanks Rory. Anything else to add from anyone else? Amazing, nailed it, I knew it. You were next, just behind.
Okay, I saw, I think it was Ed's presentation that he spoke about profit, and we still use profit, I believe, and profit trades on the tires of profit are running up, as you know. Facebook is phasing out profit from all its prediction models. So do you have any plans of adopting any new architecture, and what you're looking at currently? What you're planning?
Repeat the question, please, sir.
So the question was around using profit as a metric, and would we phase it out? No?
No, so you're using profit model for predictions, right?
Profit model for prediction. So I have to. So we do potential spend in forecasting, which is more like how much someone could spend. So I actually weirdly, this might be better placed to Gianluca if it's okay.
Was the question more around profit, like the model, the time series model?
Or rather,
Oh, sorry, profit rather than profit.
We had profit up on the slide, but that was on the slide of like what our forecasting tool doesn't use. So yeah, we don't actually use profit in our forecasting, but yeah.
Sorry, yeah, profit and profit. Profit. Yeah, sorry, yeah. So at the moment, actually, we're not really thinking about the time series side of things, to be honest. That's not our big issue. But I did not know it was getting phased out. And that's yeah.
profit is.
Oh, okay.
So so my question basically was on what new model architectures that you're currently exploring in terms of going forward.
What new model architectures are we exploring? Well, at the moment, not the time series side of things, but one thing we're exploring is columnar storage to be able to basically do very quick filtering. So at the moment, doing basically a big old SQL statement on our trillion rows is not doable. We're currently trying to work on getting that doable, but it's not super easy. I will know that when we do go back, and maybe one day we'll be in a place where we can do that time series, I will note that we're no longer using profit. I should know this. I worked at the M word for a few years. So yeah, sorry. Hopefully that vaguely answers it.
Love that, Ed. Thinking on your feet, thinking on your feet. In the red, please.
Hi, thank you for the talks. I was wondering, like, most of the talks focus a lot on winning the bid and strategies for that. But I'm wondering, like, does every win count the same? Do you get like some quality of the ad that you placed on for the publisher? I suppose that you can get some information, like in auction time, of what is the ad placement for. But does it match like the results when you place the ad? Does your client can see the results, good or bad, for every week? Can you measure that?
I guess it's
Yeah,
pricing.
probably.
I guess it's pricing, so it comes here. The way we think about it mostly
Gianluca,
is that...
repeat the question for YouTube.
Oh,
Repeat
yes.
question.
True, sorry. The question was essentially around how we differentiate how good a win is, right, or whether it's a binary outcome. And the answer is that it's not a binary outcome, and the way we differentiate it, I guess, is through the price, right? The thing is, if you imagine there's essentially an infinite stream of requests that come in. This is not always true, but for most inventory it is true. You have an infinite pool from which you can pick. And we do have models of, this user is interested in dogs and is in Phoenix, Arizona, going back to the examples from Ed. And maybe for whatever reason, the advertiser is really interested in that particular user. We're going to bid higher on them. And as long as you ensure that there is proportionality, that's the signal. And the probability that you're going to win that particular auction, of course, increases with the price. So I guess there's the side of determining how much something is worth to you as the advertiser. That's the value, I guess, you're referring to. And then there's what we try and do, which is to place a bid, and this is the pricing side of things, place a bid that will still win with a similar probability, but then will end up, if you can buy something, if you value something or you value a user at $2, and I know that I can place a bid and win at $1, then I can buy you two for the same amount of money, right? So that's sort of the pricing side. But in short, yes, the price is the indicator of the interest in the opportunity.
Gianluca.
Sir.
Hello, thanks everybody. I have a very subjective question to all of you. And the question is, how do you think Google's change from a waterfall model to a full bidding model next quarter is going to affect the bidding ecosystem? Do you have any I don't know, guess?
Don't look at me, I don't understand the question.
I am so out of this one.
Gianluca, a stat about it?
I'm not commenting.
No, and that was obviously a good comment because the panelists have all visibly just gone, no, nothing to add. So it may be that if you wanted to, perhaps you could follow up afterwards and perhaps extract some more information. Grab a beer and then perhaps you can hear a bit more. So
make them drunk and then
make them drunk is the answer to the
Jeff
question.
would be on us if we say the G word too much.
I'm conscious of time. We are getting close to the end of the panel. The trade desk have been awesome. I'll come for one more question actually. We'll do that. The trade desk have been awesome. We are going to have some networking after, so I'm going to take one more question from the audience. I've got a killer question to finish. And then we're going to have a drink at the bar. So I'll come to you for the last question from the audience, please.
Just a quick question. It's actually inspired by Rory's comment about problems with testing. And I'm curious, do you use any causal models or any type of causal models?
So the question is, do we use any causal models? And I'm not the right person to answer this question. So.
I think Sunny was the cause.
Sunny was the cause.
So you probably chat about some of the stuff you did in digital out of home. There's not really causal there, but
I wouldn't say it's like I haven't really done much because I transitioned to engineering straight away. So I touched a bit on causal inference, but it's not something I've worked on quite a lot. But I do know we do a lot of that in the company, and there's data scientists working with causal models for sure.
I need to get some other guys up here. We'll go pull out some of those
Probably
guys
not the
over there.
best crowd for that.
We'll come back.
But
we'll do a causal special.
we do work with a lot of incomplete data. Like since we're outside of the walled gardens, pretty naturally we need to find ways to tackle this missing data. So we need to infer quite a lot, and then.
I can recommend there's a few guys at the back there.
There's actually a few people that have not.
Have a chat with the AI Labs guys. See if they.
I'm not the best
after
person.
this.
They're all running for the door. I can see them. I can see them. We'll rugby tackle them. So I guess just drawing things to a close. I'm not sure how this is going to go. I'm happy with the question now that I've met all the panelists in person because this could be rogue. But I was trying to have a think about a final question. I wanted to keep it open. I wanted to come to each of the panelists individually to get their tips. So my question is, what is your one tip for success in either data, work, or life in general? So we'll start with Gianluca. We'll fire down the row. One tip for success, please.
Applicable to data, but I guess to life as well, depending on your philosophy. Just be sort of comfortable with your intuition. I think very often in data, we like to think that it's all very objective, right? Because there's numbers and whatever else. And maybe the big lesson from Bayesian stats particular is that that's not really true. You have prior information in your head, even though sometimes you don't see it or you ignore it. And I guess being comfortable with that and I guess your biases in whatever you're doing is helpful. It's both helpful to check your results, and if something looks very strange, then it's probably wrong if you have a good intuition and you've sort of cultivated that intuition. At the same time, if something is exactly as you expected it, it's also probably wrong. Right? So you want something that sort of deviates a little bit from what you think it should be. If it's completely different or completely the same, maybe have a proper look at it.
That was good. Data and life in one. Happy days. Sunny, over to you.
I think the key for me is just smile. Take everything with a smile. Whatever happens to you, no matter how bad it is, at work or in life, if you smile, it will get better. And that's my approach to life.
I think it's clearly worked, Sunny. So no one can question that advice, clearly.
It really is her approach to life. Sunny is always smiling. So my advice is sort of a twofold thing. Is you are not going to know everything. Deal with the fact that everything you deal with in life is uncertain, right? Should you take that new job? Should you go for the promotion? Should you marry that person? Whatever it is, there's always a certain amount of uncertainty. But counter to that, keep learning, right? I've had the greatest 18 months. I've learned a huge amount about data science. I've learned a whole lot about ad tech. It's great fun. Keep learning. The languages I started with in my career are all dead, right? The tooling, the data scientists probably started with are half dead. So stuff is always going to be changing. So keep learning and just accept that you're going to come across something every day that you're like, I don't know what to do now, and get on with it and Google it and whatever. Sorry, I'm not allowed to say the G word, am I?
Thank you, Rory. Over to you, John.
Mine's simple. Sit next to Ed.
Sit next to Ed. I picked the wrong seat.
No. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to have two. First one is work at the trade desk.
Hey!
There you go. So I have a slightly odd tip, which is perhaps you have a significant other, a friend, someone who you see a lot. So from my side, I'm pretty obsessive about my role. So the thing I would recommend is to navigate that with them. So I let my partner know, look, I'm working on this thing. I'm really into it. She's like, okay, Friday after 5 o'clock, you are mine for the weekend. You will not touch your laptop. I'm like, okay, I can do that. I can do that for you. But being able to kind of just navigate that and be upfront about it means that I'm able to kind of commit both time to her and my work, because if I overcommit to her, it's probably not a massive issue, but maybe I won't have a job. That will make things harder. But if I overcommit to my work, maybe I could lose her, and that would suck.
Oh man, you've got to send her this YouTube.
Yeah.
That would suck. I see what he's done. I see what he's done. Ed has got all the riz. My tip is get 8 hours sleep, everybody. Okay, prioritise it. It's funny how all these data people have ended up with some philosophical advice, which again, it does go back to the bit at the beginning. It's about multiple skills. It's not just about coding in Python, is it? It's about all these different things. So super cool. Could I please have one more round of applause for all the panelists, please?